Okay, as in go? This is Forktales, a podcast that feeds the restaurant world. If you like what we're feeding you, please follow us on your podcast service of choice. And do give us a 5-star review. Think of it as a tip for good service. Today I'm joined by my new friend, Carolyn Skinner. She is the COO, not yet. Although, Carolyn, there has been a history of people on this show getting rapidly promoted. So don't want to dangle the carrot. It could happen. COO of Tupelo Honey, which we're going to dig into the concept a little bit throughout this episode, talk a lot of other things as well. For now, Carolyn, say hello and give a little backstory.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph, for having me. I am Carolyn Skinner, Chief Operating Officer. I am a native of Asheville, North Carolina, which is also the home and original location for Tupelo Honey. And our restaurant brand has been around for about 20 years. We really started to grow in the last 10 years. I've been with the company for 10 years and seen pretty much all of the last 20 of our 21 locations launch and open. So I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. And I appreciate you taking the time out. So we worked together, put together an awesome production sheet. I think there's so many great things to talk about. And then Harvard Business Review came up with their new episode issue. And they just have a fantastic article in here called The High Cost of Neglecting Low-Wage Workers. And I think there's no better outline to kind of go off of here because Tupelo Honey has been doing such great things that I think you're actually tackling a lot of these challenges, but I think we want to know more. And so I think this might be a better outline. And so I'm going to throw a ringer at Caroline today, and she has approved this ringer. So what I'll do is I'll list off the challenges or the misconceptions, and let's just pick them apart together. So the 6 here, number 1 is that restaurant leaders don't realize that low-wage workers really want to stay with them. Number 2 is they underestimate the importance of location and stability, they meaning restaurant leaders. 3, restaurant leaders underestimate workers' goodwill. 4, they leave workers to initiate career discussions. 5, they disregard low-wage workers' strategic importance. And then the final one is failing workers on 3 things that matter the most, which is mentorship, career pathways, and guidance on learning and development. So that is quite a strong list of issues that is a far cry from the they want paid more money narrative, which obviously we're very well versed in. So clipping at number 1 here, how do you approach realizing that low-wage workers actually want to stay with the company? They don't want to leave. How do you tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, and I think, so let's just talk about the industry in general. I think our industry has gotten a bad rap, and especially in the last 3 years when you talk about people having options, the gig economy, whether that's, the car drivers, you've got people like Amazon coming out, and really these entry workers are getting targeted from lots of other industries. And it's the industry as a whole, the restaurant industry, I think, is being required to level up in how we're looking at the employee experience. For us at Tupelo, and just a little bit more about my background, I actually started with the company in human resources. I was the first hire, had a closet office, and it was just sort of like, we need to figure this out. And we really wanted, and I say as a small company, even at the time, we always functioned, it's a small but mighty, big ideas. And we were at the forefront of a lot of the farm to table movements early in Asheville. And when I came on, really the task was, we want to be at the forefront of the employee experience. And we want to be at the forefront of what we believe can be the new experience for the restaurant worker. And that was 10 years ago. And we were doing things that nobody had even heard of, like coming up with a program we called our Fair Start Wage program. And it was base wages, but it was wages with insurance for tip workers. So you would never, as a tip worker, have to worry about getting stiffed by a customer and that affecting your take-home pay. You could never go below a certain threshold. And we were doing that, 10 years ago. We had things like our Honey Pot program, and it was more of it's a lifestyle benefit where you can dip into the pot for everything from tuition reimbursement, if that's where you are in life, to paid parental leave if you've got children and a family. And I think the industry was challenged at the time about, work is very transactional. You come in, you get your tips, you go home, and you do your part, I do my part, and we go our separate ways. But where we saw the trend of the industry going is, we have to really add the human element back and care about people holistically, that they have a life outside of work, that they want support beyond just a paycheck. And so I think going back to the heart of that question, these entry-level workers, they want to stay. They want a path to grow their careers. And when you start really valuing them as humans and their experience in the work, as we're taking care of them in their life. It's not just about the time that they're here. We're giving them options to go out and whether that's raise a family, whether that's pursue education, whether that's just offsetting things like transportation costs. That's a real thing, and they're looking for those options. So meeting them where they are, but knowing that every employee is a little different. So you can't have a one size fits all program that says, here's the magic bullet for a great employee experience. You have to have options for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of the honey pot as well. I presume that the honey pot was probably handcrafted by one of the employees because you are in Asheville. If you know, you know. So I'm sure there was a potter on staff. It's like, no, literally, I'm going to make a honey pot.
Honey pot.
That's right. So I love that approach in rethinking the employee experience. I think one of the issues that a lot of companies across many industries have is that they have this suite of, we'll call them low wage workers. We got to think of a better name, entry level. And one or two start to rise to the top with their work ethic, with their ability to follow procedures. And those folks usually get put on a track to management. If it's not carefully crafted, if they're not given the opportunity to be educated and trained on what management is, I think you see a lot of flailing at that level, meaning this third issue is, or fourth issue, I should say, is leaving workers to initiate career discussions. When you start putting on that managerial hat, the responsibility is not only ensuring that everyone's following procedure, not only is it scheduling, and I don't want to give anyone a PTSD here because we can go down the list of all the managers' roles, but it is to start to guide the new crop of entry-level workers on their paths, whatever they may be. How have you tackled that issue of making sure that managers are not just trained for the day-to-day grind side of things, but the actual, how am I going to foster these people's careers?
Yeah, well, I think it's first and foremost just culturally ingrained in every single one of our managers because they've experienced it. I can think of so many of our general managers today. The average tenure of our general managers is 6 years, and we've only been growing for 10. So that says to you, most of them have been here for a large part of our growth. And many of them started as servers. Many of them started as cooks or dishwashers. So for them, they're sharing their story, which is for these entry-level workers. Hey, I was in your shoes. I started as a server, and I didn't actually see this as a career path, but now I'm a general manager of this company. Now I'm a regional director of this company. And so, and we even have kind of the non-traditional paths as well, because we've had the benefit of being a startup company. And now we have, we call it our hive. We don't like the term corporate office, but we have workers who facilitate different departments. So we have people in IT that started out as servers. We have people in our construction department that started out in the kitchen. And I think it's very, very culturally rooted in the leadership of our company that this topic of growth, that you can aspire to be just about anything in a company like ours. and your career path is actually a path. It's not just a dead end job. It's not just a means to an end. And if it is, that's okay. But they're seeing examples real time of the people that are around them and that they're working with on a regular basis that were exactly where they were not that long ago.
Yeah. And so I think one of the things that happens too, well, there's a good stat here. 60% of your management positions have been filled from within the company. I mean, that's practicing what you preach really starts to make a statement. It's not a dangled carrot. It's not if you work real hard for 35 years, maybe you'll be able to wash lettuce now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the issues that managers come up across too is that lack of training leading to burnout and frustration and early departure. How have you guys tackled that? How have you made sure that they're supported and that they have the right training?
Yeah, we come at it from all angles. And really, when you're talking about entry level workers, especially younger workers, millennial workers, they learn differently. And so we've had to recognize there's a different way to communicate with them. We've actually just started a text alert system that's automated so that they get different pings at different points in their employment experience. So on day one, we're saying, hey, did you realize you're eligible for all these benefits? On day three, we're checking in with them. How's your training going? And they love that because they can engage real time. And it's like, wow, someone's asking me about my feedback. Somebody cares enough to share this with me. But it's not in the like, hey, let's send them an email and hope that they read it, because this generation is not, that's not what they're doing. So I think it's meeting them where they are with communication, but it's also very multifaceted when it comes to training. So within this industry, it is fast. It is a lot of on-the-job learning. And, we're not expecting for people to sit in front of a computer for 10 hours and then be equipped to do the job. So we're hitting them with, micro learning, bite-sized learning, but then we're also saying, okay, let's apply this in the real world. Let's get some hands-on learning. Surround them with trainers. We invest really heavily in trainers, whether that be in the location or when we're doing a new restaurant opening, actually bringing trainers from all across the country, kind of the best of the best, to say, we're going to work alongside you and make sure that you're equipped. But then the third thing I'll say, and I think this maybe hits on a nerve within the industry, I think there's been historically just workers that have had a harder time rising through the ranks. And, we see that with females, we see that with people of color, and we've created a program specifically, we call it our Aspire program, to take those underrepresented people who have historically had harder time and maybe haven't historically had the mentorship or the support system. We put them through a 52-week mentorship program. It's designed for high potential people. It's designed for people that are historically underrepresented in the industry. And we give them a one-on-one coach mentor. So they're getting leadership development via the coach. They're also getting group learning sessions. So they meet and they cover topical sessions, and really kind of a way to unite high potential leaders across the company. We use Zoom and we use technology to facilitate all of this. But I think a lot of times the industry has ignored those people who are underrepresented or hasn't made an intentional effort to promote them. And that is something that we're being very intentional about. And we're actually saying, no, we want a diverse workforce because we serve a diverse customer base, and we want representation from all walks of life. And so we're specifically targeting those people and saying, like, hey, we're going to invest in you to have a coach, to have a mentor, to really raise you up. And the promotion rate out of that program is about 75%. So when we put people through it, they get this personalized custom coaching. They're better equipped to take on new roles in advance.
Yeah, it sounds like, you're hitting that last, that number 6 pretty hard, which is the mentorship. There's clear career pathways, and there is guidance on learning and development. And those 3 are the keys, I think, above all else. What I think is also interesting is, unpacking the perceived ceiling that a lot of underserved communities are facing. I wonder how much of that is a result of the human nature to simply just identify with people that act like you, look like you, and things like that. Meaning that requires some different kind of education and training. It's not just identifying high potential. It is, hey, this person may be different from me in every single way, but man, they are checking box A, B, C, D, and E for being a really good manager, even though we may not get along. I mean, we get along, but you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to go out, we're not going to have a beer, we're not going to hang out, and we don't have shared interests, but boom. How do you start to even chip away at polishing those skills? Because they're so nuanced.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely true. And I think validated with research that we hire people that are like us, or we gravitate towards hiring people that are like us. And so I think first is awareness, and we've made a very intentional effort to have diversity training up front. But also then it comes back to exactly what you referenced, having clear checkpoints for what does the skill set look like, not the personality, not the, they talk like me or act like me. What's the skill that we're looking for to identify? And then being able to say, yeah, you've achieved this milestone. Or if you haven't, having conversations about where you are and how you can get there. We do that because our kitchens are so scratch made. One of the most important roles in our company is our executive chef. And we do this on a regular basis, and we're hoping to do it even more frequently. We go through and assess our chefs where they are in every skill set, and we develop that skill set based off our most successful chefs. And we said, what do you have? What percent of these skills do you have? What percent do you not have? And then we're going to continue to talk about the ones that you don't until you're fully where we need you to be.
Yeah, it's I love that. So I think what's interesting is how do you start to break that inclination overall? In my head, there's some easy, or what seem to be easy paths, which is if you look like X, I'm going to pair you with everything not X. If you look like Y, same path, right? And so I think that's a nice one step. But I think any progress as a company, as a team, as a society, which we don't need to get into that bigger one, is feeling like you're safe to express your thoughts. And I think that starts by creating a place that is, I hesitate to use the word safe because I think it's been overused in the wrong ways, but a place of shared interest that is not aligned with your personal values, but a shared interest of common growth and coming to understanding. Is that in the top of your mind? Is that like kind of boiling in there as you think about these programs?
Yeah, and I think it's something, that when we're facilitating communication, we're facilitating programs, being really intentional, but it's something that really flew in the face of, I think, this industry, even through the pandemic, when you talk about the conversations that were spurred around George Floyd and just diversity in general in this country, people of color, and the challenges that they had. And we stepped into those conversations, and it wasn't always graceful and it wasn't always perfect, but I can tell you that our people, and I heard some examples even recently, our people appreciated the fact that you're acknowledging a moment that is impactful for our country, impactful for everyone, but specifically impactful and especially hard for a certain group of people. And sometimes it's just picking up the phone and saying, "Are you okay? I see you. I acknowledge what's going on right now, and it's a hard time." But rather than just ignoring the sentiment, I've spoke with leaders in our company who are like, previously in my work life, it was like, it's not happening. We're going to ignore it. We're not going to talk about it. But having the boldness and courage to say, wow, this is a thing that's happening. It's a hard thing. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to check in with you. We're going to make sure you're okay. That goes so far. And especially when we're talking about these entry level workers, because, they're carrying weight that a lot of times we don't realize. And, just giving them the benefit of acknowledging sometimes that, things can be hard and there's burdens that we may not know that they're carrying. That's compassion, that's empathy, but that's also great leadership. And I think, again, the restaurant industry is being challenged more than anyone. And we were on the front lines of pretty much everything when it came to the pandemic. But these really hard conversations we were on the front line of. And I think you're seeing the companies that did that well and that really entered into those conversations and were brave enough to enter into the conversations. And maybe they didn't always do it perfectly and they didn't always have, the perfect thing to say, but they were bold enough to to step into it, they're earning trust and they're earning respect from those workers. And that goes back to kind of who we are, just being absolutely authentic and being able to, navigate through these things the best we can with mutual understanding for our employees, but also mutual respect that we're learning things from them, that, they're helping us as we go through this journey too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because it wasn't for everyone. I mean, we were on the front lines, or maybe not the front lines. We were in the back office from, the back lines of everything that was happening with the pandemic, everything that was happening with the George Floyd tumult. I'll just call it that. And in some cases, some of our clients were just ill prepared and ill equipped, and honestly shouldn't have had a voice in it. But what you said, I want to reiterate, because I think that's an important approach, which is it started by picking up the phone and talking to the people internally, not putting the black box on your Instagram and saying, oh, that's done. And having just the, hey, we're here for you. We understand as much as we can understand. We are a company after all. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that empathy lever is oftentimes not easily pulled for some of the leadership that we have in the industry and across all industries for that matter. But it's also, it can be a bit of a dangerous one because you can almost empathize too much, where the person's like, okay, I've heard you, let it go. I want to get back to work. I want to focus on my career kind of thing. And I like that you brought it back to the entry-level workers, because I think there's two narratives at play right now that I see. The one that is most prevalent is there's a bunch of people who want paid too much to do an entry-level job and they don't want to work. And I think there's representation of that. We see it, right? But I think some of that issue starts with devaluing the insane strategic importance of, to use a term that you probably never want to use in your company, drones or worker bees, right? Like, you're so much more than that just because you're entry level. And so I think if the script is flipped and it's like, wait a second, how can we treat these folks better and show them that entry level is a label that can easily dissipate with us? How have you approached the messaging around that? Because when you're talking to bringing folks through the system, it's easier. You have a direct line of communication. When you're trying to draw them in, how do you pass the smell test with some of the messaging? How do you get them to believe you? And outside of word of mouth, of course, because that's a different type of marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, as we grow, and we're business, like you said, we still have metrics, we still have objectives that we're targeting in all of our restaurants. And we've been quite successful at it. We're industry leading in a lot of those metrics. Our average restaurant volume is 4 million, and we're hitting on some of these industry leading aspects of why we're growing and how we're growing. And that also comes with, a little bit of skepticism from employees. Okay, well, you're growing, and but what's in it for me? And so I think we're coming back to, obviously, proving that out with employees is, putting your actions to work. And for us right now, all of our profits are going back into the company. So yes, they're funding great metrics and great results, but they're also funding jobs and opportunities. And so our employees are seeing on a regular basis new positions created, new locations created. We're entering into new markets where there's jobs. And I think getting a lot of credibility from that first and foremost. But then we also, we're giving back too. And yes, we're a for-profit business. And yes, we're focused on our profitability, but heart and soul behind what we do is our people, is our employees, and that's hospitality. So they have to be bought in, that we trust, we empower, we believe in them. We launched our Biscuits for a Cause Fund, just as an example, during the pandemic. And this program really was pandemic was worst case scenario for us. 95% of our sales dropped in a matter of a day when our business was relegated to takeout. And we were in that moment. I very clearly remember sitting in our senior team meeting and sort of wrestling with, what is next? And, there's all the decisions like technology and to go, and we turn on all these things and, really pivoting our entire business model. But the very first conversation was, how do we take care of our people? And what does this look like? Because clearly we can't run a business where 95% of our sales are down and keep all of these people, but how can we still take care of them? So in the midst of furloughing our employees, we also said, we're going to look at our business. And while we are making little to no profit, let's figure out a way that we can create a fund for our employees. And, the magic of the biscuit appeared at that moment, where we said, we've been giving away this item on our menu for forever. We're going to go to go. We don't even know if people always want biscuits when they're ordering to go. So let's put a price on it. But instead of just putting a price, let's put an opportunity. And so we said, profits from the biscuit are going to go to our employees. We're also going to put a donation line because we knew it was heavy on everybody's mind. Industry, restaurant as a whole was struggling. So it started right there that, we were taking this one item and we were sort of converting it to say, we want to give this back to our employees. And when we did, we had no idea how it was going to catch. We didn't really even know how the biscuit would sell because we'd never sold it before. We didn't know if it was going to be a popular item to sell.
Right.
So started selling them in takeout, and the whole thing just sort of caught fire. And guests loved it. Employees loved it. They love to be able to talk about a fund that goes directly to their benefit. And to date, it's generated $600,000.
Oh,
so
God,
I think
that.
that's where like you can be a business and you can still do good for your people. Get them to buy in, get them to believe in that, but also let your actions speak for that.
100%. Yeah, I love that story. And I think telling that story is so incredibly important because it really is the actions. And we say that a lot to our clients is that we can spend here all day navel gaze. We can pretend to build a thing. We can talk about it in new ways. But if you're not doing it, if you're not able to actually show it, it's really going to fall flat. And it's going to prevent growth, right? So it looks like there's very measurable ways that you've built people up from entry level to new positions that open up, as well as leadership positions. You yourself being representative of that, going from the I'm going to say something that I promise you I will not make it your title. The Harry Potter of HR in the closet up to where you are today. And these other paths as well. And so it looks like it's spawned a lot of growth. So we're at 23 locations now. And the goal is to be at 38 by 2025. Obviously, good, strong HR internally helps with that. What are some of the other keys in your mind that really help to create strong, sustained growth? Meaning, how do we expand out without having to retract?
Yeah. We like to say it's what we do is simple. At the end of the day, it's about one guest, it's about one relationship and one experience. And if we can have that mindset when we're in the restaurant, and even when we're talking about growth, doubling your growth in 3 years sounds insurmountable, but really it's about the guests that walk into our door and having that relationship and having that experience with them each and every time. And so we kind of like to take it down to the smallest possible level and view it from, okay, let's double our growth. But how do we do that to each and every guest that comes in? And how do we ensure that experience is exactly the way we want it every single time? And I think there's several components to that. Foundationally, training and making sure that you're hiring the right people. But beyond that, once you do that, I think there is a big component that is partly empowering them to do the right thing. They know the brand, they've had the training. We've talked about that already. But I think what we've created for our restaurants is we want you to be local in every market. We want you to know your market. This is not a cookie cutter brand. And if you couldn't tell, we're in locations from Boise, Idaho to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So the brand resonates, but we can't expect that Tupelo Honey Boise is going to look the same as Tupelo Honey Myrtle Beach. And every community has a unique feel, a unique employee base. And so we want our managers to be empowered to have that local feel. That's also very authentically Tupelo, being Asheville. We have that independent spirit, and we've always had that independent creative spirit. So we want our managers, we want our team to still be who they are within their community. And just one example, I'll tell you of how we create the guardrails, but also empower them to do what they do locally. We have a program called the One Guest program. It's right off that slogan: one guest, one experience, one relationship. And we use a little bit of technology. So behind our host stand, we sort of power it with guest frequency information. So we can see when guests are coming in and know when a guest walks in that is a regular. This program is designed to really recognize our regulars in the moment. So the host stand will throw up a little flag that might say, Joseph's coming in and he's been here 6 times in the last 6 months. So he's a regular VIP, which alerts our managers to say, wow, this is somebody that really we should value, that is a loyal guest. And we have a program behind that, right? It's our One Guest program. Comes with a little gold coin. The manager can actually go up in the moment, talk to that guest and say, Joseph, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being a regular. We want to invite you to our One Guest program. And with that comes, free apps, a secret menu item, lots of goodies. But at the end of the day, what's really important about that program is the relationship that manager just built with that guest. Sure, there's technology, sure, there's a program behind it, but the power of being recognized in the moment as a guest and having someone actually know, without you knowing that they know, that you've been there, that you've invested your money there, and that you care enough to keep showing back, and then taking time in that very moment to say hello, to say thank you, that's really powerful. And those are the hospitality moments that we're trying to create. And I think that's what people want more of. They want less of the loyalty emails, and they want less of the, how many places can somebody hit me over the head with your brand message? But they want more of those authentic, in-person, relationship-driven moments where, I value you as a human coming into my restaurant, spending your time, spending your hard-earned money. And that's just an example of a tool and a way that we empower our managers to say, you are local, you are Myrtle Beach Tupelo Honey. And it's not Tupelo Honey, the 22 location brand. It's Tupelo Honey Myrtle Beach, because I know Patrick and he's the general manager here, and he came in and talked to me today.
Right.
So I think that's a little bit of why and how we're growing. We want it to be local. We want it to be unique in every market. And we're trying to create systems that allow managers not to reinvent the wheel, but to be local, to be authentic, while also still kind of operating under the Tupelo Honey umbrella.
Yeah, I love that example as well. I mean, that's there's a lot of discussions around the coldness of technology and how you can strip out the human touch and the hospitality of the whole thing. And that's a good way of using technology as what it's supposed to be, which is a tool. It's a way to make things better. That doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't use it to streamline systems. Like, I'm a big proponent of kiosks. I think they're fantastic. I'm also a big proponent of having someone next to the kiosk to make sure people aren't getting tripped up and make sure that there is a human touch. And so I love that. So this has been absolutely fantastic. I think I have to hit you with one final, probably the toughest question in the world, which is, if you had one final meal, and wait times were not a factor, what would you eat, where, and why?
I love this question. So this one's a little nostalgic for me, because this is not a meal that can go to a restaurant and get, but it would have to be my grandmother's New Year's Day meal, and just a little southern information that you can learn. In the South, we're super superstitious about days like New Year's, and so the whole meal revolves around certain little traditions. But my grandmother was an amazing cook. So you would always have collards, and collards represent your money. You would always have black-eyed peas, and that represents luck. And then you would always have some kind of pork, but she did an amazing fried pork chop, and that was supposed to represent like prosperity and progress. And so to me, that's the perfect Southern meal. And my grandmother is no longer with us. Every year I try to replicate that meal, and it's just not quite right. So I would pay a lot of money to get the opportunity to eat that meal again. And that I would wait time, I would pay money, I would do all the things.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's a fantastic answer. And one of the things I love about that question in general is the broad diversity of answers you get. And all of them are 100% powerful and memorable, in my opinion, which the final meal absolutely should be. Um,
Yes.
Caroline, thank you for being so amazing with your time and your insights and kind of opening the doors of Tupelo Honey, as well as your own thinking. How should people connect with you and the brand?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find our brand on tupelohoneycafe.com. We're also on Instagram under the same handle. So, and hopefully coming to a city near you.
I love it. Check the show notes for those links, folks, and thank you again. If you love what we served up, please follow us at Vigor Branding on Instagram and LinkedIn. Forktales is produced by the team at Vigor, a Pavone Group company. Audio and post-production provided by Zencaster and the Pavone Group team. Music performed by Jet Trash and licensed through musicbed.com. Joseph handles his own hair, makeup, and stunts.